Hey, today I'm going to give you some tips on working with your exposure so you don't have to change it after each and every frame.
Ask David Bergman.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Ask David Bergman here on Adorama TV. Today's question is from Doug C. and he asks, when shooting sports in manual mode, how do I set my shutter speed, aperture, and ISO so that I don't have to keep changing them throughout the game? Boy, exposure, it's a big thing, right? Because you might think that you have to change everything all the time and it can get really confusing. So what I do is I actually have a live concert photography workshop, and what I teach yes, that's a shameless plug, by the way, shootfromthepit.com. You can sign up there for the email list for future workshops. But what I like to teach people when I'm teaching about exposure is what you want to do is eliminate variables. So there's 3 variables, and the problem is people take a picture and then it doesn't look right, they change all 3 settings and it still doesn't look right, and then their head explodes, right? Because you don't really know what you did. So by scientifically eliminating variables, you can really make it simpler. What I teach people is I want you to forget about the camera, forget about the gear, forget about all the settings, and concentrate on making pictures, paying attention to what's happening in front of the lens. That's the secret to making great pictures. It's not about what setting to use or which lens to use. It's concentrating and paying attention to what's happening in front of the lens and not missing those great little moments that happen in a concert or sporting event or even when you're doing a portrait. Those little moments, that's where the greatness happens. So what I teach people is I want you to eliminate variables. So I'm not going to go over the whole exposure triangle. You know about shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. There's plenty of videos about that. But the 3 settings, the goal is what you want to do is figure out which ones you can set and forget and get out of your mind. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm on tour with Luke Combs, as you probably know by now, and I'm shooting concerts every single night. So the thing is, I know, for example, my ISO is going to be high. It's not as bright as daylight at a concert. It's pretty bright, but it's not as bright as daylight. So I know my ISO. I'm going to push that up as high as I'm comfortable. Now I'm using the Canon 1DX Mark II. I can get away with really high ISOs. I'm going to shoot 6400 all night long. It looks great. All the pictures on my Instagram from the shows are at 6400. I've done coffee table books with 6400 ISO. It looks really, really good. So with that particular camera, I know I can push it that high. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to set it at 6400 and I'm not going to touch it all night long. I don't have to change it at all. So it's out of my mind. I don't have to think about it, right? So that one's gone. Now let's talk about aperture. Generally, I'm going to shoot wide open. Depends on the lens I'm shooting with, but if I'm using a 2.8 lens or an f4 lens, I'm going to shoot as wide as that lens will allow me. Depth of field's not so much of an issue in a concert because usually the people are separated from the background enough that I'm not really shooting super shallow depth of field. I don't want to shoot at f11 or 16 because I want to let as much light in as I can also. So now if you're using a prime lens that's a 1.2 or 1.4 or something like that, you have to make your own decision if you want to shoot that wide open, because then your depth of field is going to be really shallow and you might have an eye in focus and a nose out of focus. So that's a creative decision that I'm going to have to leave up to you. But once you get into the 2.8 or f4 range, it's really a non-issue. So for the most part, I'm going to shoot that lens wide open. So my lenses, most of them are either f4 or the long lens is a 5.6. That's what I'm going to shoot at. I'm going to set it. I'm going to forget it. So I'm at 6400. I'm at f4. And I don't have to touch those 2 settings all night long. So what am I left with? Shutter speed. That's all so now shutter speed, for the most part, has now become a brightness setting, right? Because I'm down to 1 setting, if I speed up my shutter speed, my image is going to get darker, right? If I slow down my shutter speed, my image is going to get brighter. And that's really it. So if I take a picture and I look at it on the back of the screen and it looks too dark, I just slow down my shutter speed. Once I figure out what the exposure is, of course I'm shooting full manual, once I figure out what that exposure is and it looks good, I'm going to leave my shutter speed where it is and I'm going to just shoot and pay attention to what's happening in front of the lens and just take pictures and concentrate on not missing those moments. And I'm not going to change anything until the light significantly changes. Now with a concert, if I'm facing the same direction, if I'm facing the stage, generally the light doesn't change because there's a spotlight on the lead singer, and that's really all I'm concerned about, is the light on the face of the lead singer. Around him or her, there's going to be all kinds of colored lights and things changing and blinking on and off. That doesn't matter. The face is what I want to expose for. So if there's a bright red light in the background, it's going to look bright red in the picture. If it's black in the background, it's going to look black. As long as that face is exposed properly, then I'm good to go. So I'm not going to change my settings, any of them, until if I go on stage and go behind the singer and shoot out to the crowd, I know it's going to be darker back there because the spotlights are coming from the other side. So I'm going to slow down my shutter speed, maybe a couple of stops. You figure it out with experience over time, but you can slow it down, shoot one frame, take a look at it. When that looks good, then just shoot, pay attention, take pictures. So sports are the same way. If you're shooting sports, you're in daylight, maybe set your ISO first, kind of low, 400 maybe. Then you know you're going to shoot wide open, right? So if you're shooting a long lens, maybe a 600 f4 or a 400 2.8 or something like that, you're going to shoot wide open, and then you're just going to ride your shutter speed as needed. And you don't have to check it every single frame because it doesn't change that much. One more example. Let's say you're shooting something where you want to do a panning photo, right? Where you're shooting a car or somebody on a bicycle, let's say, and you're photographing them and you want to pan with them and have the background blurry. You want them sharp but the background blurry. Well, in that case, your shutter speed is the most important thing there, right? You have to figure out the exact shutter speed to be able to pan with them, to keep them sharp, but get the background out of focus. So I'm going to just guess maybe it's around a 1/30 of a second, right? You have to experiment and figure out what's the best one for you, but in that particular situation. But let's say it's a 1/30 of a second. So you want to set that shutter speed and you want to set it and forget it. You don't want to change that all day long while you're shooting this picture because that will change the look of your picture, and that's not the idea. You want the creative look of that panning shot. If you have speed up to 2/50 of a second, it's going to change the way the picture looks. So you're at a 1/30th, you've set it and forget it. Then maybe you check your ISO, right? You're in daylight, you can keep your ISO pretty low, 200, 400, something like that. So you're going to set that, you're going to forget it. So we've eliminated 2 of the variables. Now all we have left is aperture. And you can just change your aperture based on the brightness level of your scene. So take some test frames, see how it looks, try it at f8, try it at 5.6, try it at 11, whatever it is. If it's too bright, you want to close down your aperture, so the higher numbers, f11, f16. If it's too dark, you want to open up down to 5.6, f4, 2.8, something like that. And until you get the right exposure. Then once the exposure is set them and forget them. Don't think about it. Then concentrate on making pictures. That's what I'm hoping to get people to do. It's really the best way to think about it. And Doug, with sports, I know the light's changing occasionally, but if you eliminate 2 of the variables and leave it just to 1, then you're going to be much better off and you can really worry about not missing those great action pictures. Thanks so much for asking that question. Again, shootfromthepit.com is my workshops. I hope to see some of you guys out there soon. Next year in 2020, there'll be a bunch of new ones. And then Adorama TV. Look, these guys have been great. I mean, there's so much photo content. There's something like 1 million subscribers now. Bunch of free photo content. I hope you'll subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Come back here next week. We'll have a new Ask David Bergman question, and I'll pick the best ones and answer them right here on a future show. Thanks so much for coming along, and I'll see you next time.